There we go. Well, I've got 1:30 Mountain Time, so looks like most people are in. So I am going to go ahead and get this started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the second Saturday series webinar for October. My name is Susan Jones, and I'm here at the Animas Museum. And I'm so happy to have Kathy Gibson here with me through the magic of Zoom, because she is safely at home in Michigan. But with Zoom, we can do programs just like this. And I just want to take a minute to say that this is an example of why we're keeping our webinars on Zoom, even as things loosen up throughout the country. You know, we can support more people comfortably on Zoom than we can physically in the museum. And we can easily record these sessions so you can view them at any time. If 1:30 on Saturday doesn't work for you, you can view it later. And we've got them all saved on our website. So if you're ever bored and there's nothing on TV, go to animasmuseum.org and look at all our old webinars. So we're committed to staying on Zoom. Today, we're going to talk about the early photographers of Durango. You may know Kathy. Her great-grandfather was the photographer Frank Donner, and she did an absolutely amazing talk last year about him, and the recording of which, of course, is available on our website, and I'll put a link to it on the webpage with the recording for today's webinar that you'll receive tomorrow. We're so happy to have her here to share her passion, telling her family story, which is very much intertwined with the other photographers who documented early Durango. She'll be sharing today some incredible photos that are not part of the Historical Society's collection as she talks about these early photographers. You know, today we really take for granted the little cameras that are built into the phones that we carry around on our pockets. When La Plata County split from San Juan County in 1876 and kind of became what we know today, cameras were large and bulky. Photographers required special talent and knowledge to deal with the glass plates and the chemicals and the developers and all that kind of stuff we're so lucky not to have to worry about anymore. Photography had only been introduced in the United States about 40 years earlier, but it gained rapid popularity during the Civil War through the work of photographers like Matthew Brady. You know, after the war, as Americans pushed west, photographers found they were in great demand for two main reasons. One, to document the landscape and its beauty and the incredible development that was going on, which encouraged other people to come west. Also, often when people moved west, they said goodbye to their families and friends, never knowing when or if they might see them again. So portraiture was very important. You might dress in your Sunday best and go to the photographer's studio and have cabinet cards made to send back home. So we'll see some examples of those today. So definitely there are two sides to photography, and it was an incredibly important part of the growth of the American West. Let me cover some of our usual Zoom housekeeping real quick, and then we'll get going. We're using Zoom's webinar feature, which means that you're all muted and your videos are all set to off. At the bottom of your screen, and you may need to mouse down to see it, there are a couple icons. To minimize distractions today, we've disabled the chat. If you have an immediate question or issue, please click on the Q&A icon and we'll be monitoring that. Please hold your questions. We'll answer them at the end of the talk. We will open up for questions, and you can either type them into the Q&A at any time and we'll answer them at the end, or at the end, you can raise your little hand icon, click your little hand icon, and we'll allow you to unmute and ask your questions. This session is being recorded, and you will receive an email in 24 hours with a link to the recording and all the links that we're going to talk about with a lot of resources today. So with that, here we go. So first of all, we need to acknowledge the work of William Henry Jackson, the great photographer of the West. He was probably the first to photograph this area, although he never had a studio or lived in Durango. We don't know for sure, but we suspect that he was an inspiration to the other photographers that we will talk about today. We could do a whole webinar on William Henry Jackson, so this is just kind of quick. Jackson was an artist and a photographer born in 1843 who grew up back east and served in the US Army during the Civil War. In 1866, he boarded a Union Pacific train west and never looked back. The UP hired him to document the scenery along the railroad routes when he was discovered by Ferdinand Hayden, who was then organizing his first USGS survey into the Yellowstone area in 1870. There's a great book, by the way, out recently called Saving Yellowstone by Megan Kate Nelson, if you want to learn more about that survey. The image of him over here is from the 1872 Hayden survey of the Grand Tetons. So it's a great photo of him with his horse. And if you notice in the back, they're not our mountains. So that's why, but I couldn't resist that picture. He sketched, he took photographs under incredible conditions, and this work helped to make Yellowstone one of our very first national park. In 1874, 1875, right after the Bruneau Agreement was signed, Hayden was sent by the USGS to Colorado to figure out what this new territory that we got implied, and Jackson went with him. Jackson was given a lot of latitude to explore on his own, and he took pictures of the ancestral Puebloan ruins in Mancos Canyon that you see here in the background. Another book called Mapping the Four Corners by Robert McPherson and Susan Rhodes Neal is a fantastic book to learn more about that survey, which does talk so much about our what we call home now. They describe some of the challenges that Jackson faced, especially up at altitude in Baker's Park, also known as Silverton. And they talk about Parrot City and John Moss, who we've also talked about on our Gold Rush to the La Plata webinars. This is a great image of in the Tetons of Jackson and kind of what he had to do to develop his images. So glass plates had to be developed on the spot. And he had carried a little tent with him that you can see that he used to develop the plates in amazing spots, like the one you see right here, way up high and with snow all over the place, and hardly a place. You better watch wherever you step, or else who knows, you'd probably fall 1,000 feet down. You know, later, oh, here are some of the photos of Jackson carrying his equipment with his mule. He evidently carried various sizes of plates and cameras, up to 20 by 24 inches, plus all of the equipment that he needed, like we saw in the previous slide, plus the tripod, plus this, plus that, all on the burro pack wherever he went. Later, Jackson established a studio in Denver, and he came back to our area to take photographs of the Denver Rio Grande route, like this fantastic one of the High Line that we show here. He also took pictures of the Rio Grande Southern and Lizard Head Pass, and some of those are really famous. Special trains were chartered with him with a coach fitted specially out for his developing work. But he did come here. And here are some of the panoramas that he took from Durango, from up on Reservoir Hill, now known as College Hill, that are a priceless documentation of the development of Durango. So, Kathy, did you want to talk some more about this one?
We can. Were we going to take the tour in this picture?
We can start here.
Or in the next one?
You want to go to the next one?
Yeah, it's a little closer. There we go. Oh, this is an amazing picture. Photograph taken by him from, once again, Reservoir Hill, where the Fort Lewis College is now. We can see some iconic buildings. Some are no longer there. If we start at the lower right corner, we can see the boulevard, which is 3rd, and which is, of course, tree lined now. But at the very far end is is the Amy House, which is now, we all know this is Hood Mortuary. And of course, you know, it's all filled in and paved and trees abounding everywhere. But this is what it looked like about 1892 or maybe a little later. The next building there is the First Presbyterian Church. And the next one beyond that is the Methodist Church. Now, these two buildings burned in the 1889 fire. And a little further up south on the boulevard, we turn the corner and we can see the new county courthouse. The La Plata County Courthouse was built 1891, 92. So we at least can date the photograph from that point. And then if we go a little further over towards Maine, we can travel down to the Strater Hotel. And then way far in the background is the New York smelter. And of course, that was huffing and puffing all the time, every day, like that. But that's our Durango from a long, long time ago. It was quite a town. Okay, so I did want to say one thing real quick. I am very happy to be here. This is such an exciting thing for us to do. We had to choose just enough photographs to whet your appetite, but we had so many to choose from. We tried to pick out photos that maybe you haven't seen, maybe you have seen. I'm the family genealogist, and so I approached these competitors of my great-grandfather as I did my great-grandfather, searching for them and their photographs. And then I used censuses and family stories, biographies, and newspaper clippings to develop each one a small timeline. So we're really opening with R.B. Collins, Richard Bell Collins. He was an Englishman from Cornwall. He was born in 1847. He photographed in Boulder in 1887. His business was Collins Art Gallery. Then he moved to Telluride, and you can see this is a photo of a Telluride street, presumably Maine. He arrived in Durango by 1881. And we actually, we have somewhere along here, we have some clippings showing his little ads from 1881. This is a photograph of Durango. Yeah, it's not a very good one, but it's the only copy I could find of very old Durango, obviously. He hasn't been an easy man to pin down because but he did take these photos, and we're certain of that. The next photo is Fort Lewis. We're thinking that this is his. There was an ad in the newspaper telling us he took photos of the new schoolhouse and Fort Lewis. So this could be his. We're not sure. And the next photo is Views of Durango, Colorado, R.B. Collins, photographer. This is definitely Durango. They were building a cistern in the middle of the street. The large building on the left is the which bank is it? The First National Bank. It did not burn in the fire, and I'll refer to the fire a lot. The fire actually started on 10th Street, or it went north from 10th Street, and this is 9th Street, right? Okay. Right. R.B. Collins sold sewing machines in his photo gallery. One article tells, I already mentioned that, the schoolhouse in Fort Lewis. And by 1910, he was in Los Angeles, and he died there in 1931. And I believe we have maybe one more slide. There we go, of 1882, when he is advertising in Durango. He wasn't there very long. Our next photographer we know is A.B. Salisbury, but we don't know much about him. I can't find him anywhere in Ancestry.com or online for that matter, except these photographs that the Animist Museum has. This is an unknown man. We don't believe it's Salisbury, but you can certainly see the back of a card that shows he was a photographer in Durango. He practiced photography in Durango in 1881. Through various newspaper websites, we found out he worked as a banker and an investor, and he ran a clothing store in Peabody, Kansas. When his wife became ill, they settled in Colorado Springs. Then they moved to Durango. In November of 1883, as receiver of the Inner Ocean Hotel in Durango, Salisbury sold the furniture in goodwill for $800 to a J.H. Christ. He also received a quitclaim deed for half interest in the Copper Chief lode in the Needle Mountain Mining District for $750. And Susan found these in the newspaper. But he was a photographer, as evidenced by this photo back. He left Durango in March 1884 to visit family in Kansas and couldn't return due to snow in April in 1884. But he's back in Kansas by 1886. Now, the Fort Lewis Center of Southwest Studies shows a photo of A.P. Camp. Okay, I will stop there, and I'll talk about this little clipping. Evidently, he and a friend straddled a mountain a few days ago that is 14,000 feet high. So he did a 14er when he was living there. And I think that's just a great little article. So there is a fine photo of A.P. Camp's home taken November 1885. This is the one that's at the Center of Southwest Studies. In 1887, he headed to California for his wife's health, and he died in California in 1924. And one thing I want to say right here as I think about it, this is a good example of finding direction. We can see Parents Peak in the background. We know the house is facing east and the mountains are facing west. And because of the configuration, we know that the right part of the photo is going north and the left is going south. And this helps identify where you are in town when you're looking at different photographs. Good thing we have these clearly defined locations that we can tell directions, because we got stumped on a photograph earlier by another photographer trying to figure out where it was in town. So these two men showed up, took photos, and left. The next slide shows a lot of Wilders, but it mentions Boston. I accumulated these from the newspaper, but notice on the left, duplicate photos from negatives of R.B. Collins, John Hodges, who we've not done any research on, A.B. Salisbury, and E.A. Wilder. Good material, well finished, about half original prices, order at Wilder's Gallery. So evidently Wilder had R.B. Collins and A.B. Salisbury's glass plates. That's all we know. Newspapers give us just enough information to make us really wonder. So our next photographer is Wilder. This is a portrait of him in his older age. He was really the first photographer to settle in Durango in 1881. The Ohio census for 1880 shows his occupation as artist. The Dolores News mentioned he moved to Durango for the winter of 1881, and he was in Dolores prior to that time. I found a few photos attributed to Wilder. An article from the Southwest tells he traveled to Ignacio to photograph the Utes in May of 1883.
We have that one.
We put this one in this place because this is actually a mining photo from Rico that he was advertising in the Dolores newspaper. This is a really beautiful photograph. It's very crisp and clear, and I'm sure I found it online somewhere. And I think is the next one the back. Okay, here's information about Wilder being in Dolores in 1881. And then it shows November, he has gone to Durango for the winter. And this gives us a clue as to when he arrived in Durango. Okay, so the next picture may be the Utes. There are the Utes. Probably this photo was taken in 1883, based on the article. Wilder's in the 1885 Colorado census, and his gallery was on the north side of First Street at 13th. Now, First Street is now Main Avenue as we know it today. There's his gallery. This is an incredible photograph. Notice the windows on the rooftop. This photo is, is this photo facing south or north? Okay, see, we could get tripped up on this. I was thinking it was facing south, which is where most of the light would come from most of the day. So this is how they illuminated their interior so that they could take portraits indoors. And if you are able to find other galleries, you'll find windows to let in the light. Okay, so yes, so I was right. You can see this is the same building, and it is facing south toward, no, it's facing north. This is where the mountains help. We're looking north towards Silverton. And there next to him is Nagelin's blacksmith shop. And Charles Nagelin was originally from, well, I'm not going to talk about him, but he started in Animas City and he ended up in Durango in this location. And we decided that it was, we are looking on the east side of Maine towards the north from here.
And Nagelin's was at what's now 14th Street in Maine.
Okay, so this helps to ground us as to where we are. Okay, I think the next photo we set up is going to be the depot. Nope, that's the Grand Central Livery. Notice the little inset, that is the back of one of his photographs, presumably that one. And it shows that they did all these beautiful backs to talk about, to display what they're photographing. Here's the depot with a different back inset. We were wondering when this photo might have been taken. It's early. We looked at the locomotive. I'm sure someone can come up with probably the locomotive, and that would help us date it.
Yeah, actually, Kathy, since we last talked, it's a consolidation locomotive. It's a 280. So they were built in the early 1880s. So, as well as like this first car is an RPO, or Railway Post Office, and it was built about 1880, 1881. So that doesn't help. So we know this is after 1882, but it's still, we can't, there's nothing else to really knock down a date. One of the things we looked at were the windows on the coaches, the passenger coaches, and it was later on that they started covering up the window where the wood burning stove was, or the coal stove was. So that was like 1890. So what we can say is probably this photo is between 1882 and 1890-ish. So that helps. So it's one of the earliest photos I've ever seen of this side of the Durango Depot.
It's a marvelous photo. It really is. I'm glad we found it. Okay, so the next one is, I found this in Dwayne Smith's materials, one of his photos that he used. This is evidently a party of a group of people, and it appears that they are on the High Line. And if they're not, they're someplace close.
Yeah,
so they must have all stopped and had their picture taken.
Yeah, just like on a modern photography train, everybody got off the train and they took pictures of it as it went through. So it's an absolutely great picture. I'm glad you found it.
And the High Line really, as I look at it, the High Line has three rails. So we are up there. Okay. Let's see the next one. Okay, this is the iconic Trimble Springs, north of Durango, the Trimble Hot Springs Hotel. I believe this building burned down and it was rebuilt. And then of course it burned down again. and it's not what we see today, but it certainly was a popular place. My grandmother went there for her honeymoon in 1916. Let's see. Okay. Now, do we believe this is Wilder? We don't.
No.
This is an unknown gentleman, his portrait, and another back for Wilder. It says landscape and portraits photographer, Durango, Colorado. Okay, he called his gallery the Eureka Studio, and here is another back. He stayed in Durango until about July 17th, 1888, when the Durango Herald tells us he planned to relocate to Fort Lewis out near Hesperus, which makes me think, well, we question whether that Fort Lewis photo of the army standing at attention, if actually it could have been a Wilder photo. We don't know. It's quite a challenge to figure this out in some cases. So my great-great-grandfather, William Henry Roberts, a Missouri carpenter and photographer, came to Durango in November of 1888 and leased Wilder's gallery somewhere between then and December 1888. Here's the back of one of Wilder's cards. It talks about Durango. It's an advertisement for it. So I'm kind of thinking that if he used this, I mean, I'm sure he did, that maybe some of the pictures on the front that he would have put on the front might have had something to do with Durango, might have been describing Durango in some way. So Wilder moved back to Ohio for a time, and then he moved to Berkeley, California. You can see this is Dayton, Ohio. He is he's making photographs of building stock machinery, et cetera, et cetera. He does professional and commercial work in the city. So there he is in 1901. But he did move to Berkeley, California, where he died in 1934, still a photographer. Here is an article that Robert McDaniel wrote for the 2007 Historic Durango, the publication that comes out every May. And he describes how Boston got here, Jacob out of Boston. Then in the corner, on the lower corner, is a picture of Frank Goner and the photo of Durango after the fire. So Boston was a competitor to Frank Goner and Wilder. This is a good article. I'm not going to read it, but it does give his history. Let's see, do we have a back photo of Boston? There's the photo of Boston, and there's the back. Notice it says Mechanicsburg, Ohio. He also was from Ohio, worked in Ohio. In 1871, he was born in North Carolina, and he did serve in the Union Army. He worked in 2 Ohio towns until 1878, and then he moved to Colorado. He and his wife were listed in the 1880 census in Canyon City. He moved to Saguache at the end of 1881, then to Alamosa in 1882, and these are substantiated by newspaper clippings. His obituary tells us he was in Durango by 1884. He also spent time in Silverton. Now, before we leave this, I want you to see the back that's on the right. It says A.B. Salisbury, but Jacob Boston stamped his name on it, J.A. Boston. And I don't have any history. We could not find any history about this exchange here, whatever is happening, except that Boston took the back from Salisbury and used it. Okay, now he was also in Silverton. I found an ad for him. I'm working in Silverton, and that's where these little children, it says Silverton, Durango and Silverton, Colorado. And we're assuming that these are children from Silverton. the picture to the right is the Peter Dom family, and this was taken in Durango.
And I'm just going to jump in here, Kathy, and say that
Yes.
this photo of the Dom family is your perfect example of what they called a cabinet card. Is they were a certain height, like 4 and a bit by 6 and a bit inches. And this is the kind of photo that you'd take in Durango and then you'd send to your relatives back east, and they would proudly just display it in their curio cabinet, hence the name cabinet cards. So
Okay, I didn't know that about the cabinet card. How about that?
So this is a great example, and you'll see more, and always, especially as we get here into the 1880s and or 90s, people or the photographers would use them for advertising for sure.
Yes. Jacob Boston lost his gallery in the July 1889 fire, a $3,000 loss with no insurance. Goner, Robertson, and Corey lost Wilder's place as well. By 1892, Boston was in operation again and was at the corner of 1st and I Street, which is in our time Main and 11th. The Sanborn fire map from 1893 shows his gallery, and we'll look at that in a minute. This photo, let's see. Okay, the photo of the man leaning on the stump is on the front of the back of Salisbury's card that was overstamped with Boston's name.
And the man is named George Runlet, but
Okay,
that's all we know about him.
and we didn't do any genealogical research on him.
Nope.
The photo on the left is John Moss, and Susan alluded to him earlier. He was in, was it Parrot City, La Plata Canyon, La Plata City, anyway, over on the west side of Durango, up on the other side of the mountain.
I think this one's interesting because certainly it's got Boston's name on it, but I suspect it might have been taken earlier by this other photographer in Pueblo, but Boston somehow got the rights to reprint it in Durango with his name on it.
And I have heard that sometimes they gave each other's work. We can't corroborate that, but this might be an example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. This is the very famous Boston photo from, did we determine February? Yes, Robert McDaniel determined that, 1889, behind the fire. I'm sorry, behind the smelter, looking down on the river. In this photo, you can see all kinds of things. You can see how the river bends, the depot, the roundhouse, up Main Street towards the north. The Strader is in the picture. And then it just goes on, and I believe we can see Longfellow from there, can we?
I think, yeah.
School, the white building up at the top, kind of on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that also helps us date, is if we could see Longfellow in the photograph. That's the school that my great grandmother taught at. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Okay, I love this particular photo of the Strader Hotel because it has Boston photography on written on the bottom of the print. And the one below it is also signed or written on by Boston. Presumably, this is the new courthouse that was built after or before 1892. And on the right are two photographs of one of, we determined the mine.
The smelter.
I'm sorry, yes, that's the smelter, and then an unknown mine. And these are from the Ranch and Range from 1901. I did look that up to be sure. The Ranch and Range was a publication. Now, these are portraits by Boston. The left one is his wife, Clara, and the right is his daughter, Helen, who married, where's Circe?
Mm-hmm.
Here is my notes. Have I got the right guy? Yeah.
Mhm.
She married Judge William Searcy in Durango. There's my notes. Okay. And these last two are so neat. There is his son, William Walter, on his little burro. And then, and in a portrait. And we looked very closely at this, and we think it may be the same tree stump prop that was in the other photograph, but I think it's turned, so we can't see the knots on the tree stump. I think it's the same one, though. It looks very familiar. And that's another way to determine if the photographer has taken a certain photo by his backdrop and by the props in the photo. So let's see, what's the next one? Okay, I like this one. This I picked out from ancestry.com. It is a Colorado State Business Directory from 1890, and it shows in the middle there Boston J.A. in Durango and Corey and Goner. Well, they misspelled Goner. It should be G-O-N-N-E-R, and that's my great-grandfather. So they were the photographers who advertised in the Colorado Business Directory in 1890. So let me see here. Boston worked in Durango for about 6 years, almost as long as Wilder. Note the newspaper clippings and the Sanborn. Oh, we'll show you the Sanborn fire map in a minute. He sold his gallery to Lewis Smith Sr., according to the Durango Wayjourner, November 1898. But these you can see are some of his ads. And I apologize, when I clipped it, I doubled up on one. But these go back to 1884, 1912, 1889. He was very prolific. He spent a lot of years in Durango. He spent about 6 years in Durango, actually, almost as long as Wilder. The Sanborn fire map shows Boston's gallery up in the upper, the yellow building. The yellow on the Sanborn fire maps indicates that it was a frame building, and it says photos on it. And then down below in the brick building across the street is Goner's photo and I think it's his music store. This was 1893. Yes. Okay, and then the little clipping that says Boston sold his photo gallery to Smith. Now, Lewis Smith continued the business as Boston's gallery for a number of years. I can only find a few of his photographs. I hope they will come to light now that we are talking about him. Here are some pages from the Ranch and Range, the same one, 1901, of the Colorado State Bank building, which is on the right, which became Burns National Bank. And the one on the left is the Smelter City State Bank in the Newman block. So, and these are the only ones I could find. Okay, we tried to keep these photographers in chronological order, but they overlap these 20 years. So bear with us. We've also left out a few good photographs, and we have so many more that we can't show today for our time that we have. This is a photograph of Frank Goner, my great-grandfather, and from 1910. He was the exalted ruler of the Elks, and his portrait is still hanging in the Elks building. Notice that this is Wilder's card back, but Frank Goner scratched his name out and signed his own. And those are my scribblings as to what's on the front of the photograph and the date that I was trying to figure out and who they are. But we're not going to show that one. We showed that in the previous one, the previous Zoom. Okay, so here is a photograph of Wilder that Goner presumably took, Durango after the fire. After July, wait a minute, the fire was July 1889, so obviously this is after. If you look up the wide street, you can see Longfellow School. That gives you an idea of how much burned, and then some buildings didn't burn. And it was a very bad fire, and the Animals Museum had a Zoom program on the fire. So William Henry Robertson Corey, who trained Frank Garner, went on back to Missouri, and these are two Garner pictures. The first one, the fire, is an important photograph, but this one I love. It's the Durango Wheel Club photo of June 1895. They all rode up there on their bicycles up to Baker's Bridge and had a picnic and were celebrating. And the museum printed this picture as a poster in 1995 to commemorate the Wheel Club's 100th anniversary. But also it was a fundraiser for the museum, and they are available now for $5 each at the museum. So you can have this fine Garner photo in your own home, like I do. Okay, we have, now, I love the back of this photograph. This shows Garner and Leka. Garner took a partner in 1890-91. The Leka brothers arrived in Durango sometime before 1890 from Champaign, Illinois. Both were born in Clinton County, Ohio. According to one obituary, they spent time in Utah taking photos before they moved to Durango. But to talk about this briefly, this is a card back that says, "This view is one of a series of 69 views photographed by Garner and Leka in June 1891. Cliff dwellings, hieroglyphs, picture writing, and miscellaneous. And you can have a picture for 50 cents or 3 for $1. Now, I did a research on this, and it was the 1891 expedition that went to Grand Gulch. McLeod and Graham went, and a number of other people went, including Leka and Hurd, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. There are no known photographs from this postcard series. We cannot find them. I've asked all over the country, and they're just, I have no idea what they look like. I'm assuming it was Grand Gulch and all the things that they found there. So the Leka brothers together were photographers in Utah. This photograph is at the Utah State Historical Society in the Utah Photographers Photograph Collection from 1880s to 1920s. That's all we know about this photograph. The brothers were Francis Edgar and William Lincoln. Garner partnered with one of them for 1890 and 1891. At this point, no one can say for certain which Leka brother was the local photographer. If we only had the summer 1891 newspapers, this mystery would be solved, but they're not saved. We can't find them anywhere. And it's a shame, because that's when Nordenskjold was also in Durango. So William Lincoln's obituary indicated he was a school principal in Moab. The brothers moved west after William Lincoln attended college and became a teacher. Then later he re-entered to become a physician. After living in Durango, he spent a few years as an itinerant photographer in New Mexico. He was a traveling photographer. He lived in Golden, New Mexico, per the 1900 census. In 1902, he worked near Albuquerque. The newspaper clippings have him all over the northern part of the state. In 1903, he moved to Fairmont, Illinois, and became a florist. He died there in April 1915. His obituary describes his occupation. Prior to that time, he had taken up photography, and while in the West, he gained much experience by traveling among the Indians and Spanish-speaking people of the Southwest. Now, the other brother, Francis Edgar's First National Bank records show he had regular employment. His obituary and the 1900 census for Durango mentioned he was a foreman at the smelter. He lived in Bayfield after he retired, quite ill from his occupation, and he died there from taking cyanide in 1914. So the next one is a booklet at the Center of Southwest Studies. It's empty, as you can see. This is the binding of it. Goner and Lika took photographs of Durango to show the great recovery Durango made after the big fire. And you can see this is a list of locations that they photographed. The postcards would fit inside, and we have a few of these postcards. Here are some easily recognizable photographs, and the booklet, we've already shown you that, identifying the buildings. Many of these photos are reprinted in books, and some have been cropped without the number. We showed some of these in the Goner Zoom last fall. Let's see, this is the Schneider block, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is picture number 13. In fact, it's right there in the corner, the lower right-hand corner. Sometimes they were in black, sometimes they were in white. The next one.
Oh, I'm just going to stop here.
Yes.
The Schneider block is still there today, and the Himalayan kitchen is right here on the corner for Durango folk. And this building is protected by a facade easement that is held by the La Plata County Historical Society. So yeah, we have the museum, but we also make sure that 5 different properties in town keep up with their historical look, and this is one of them. Sorry about that. I had to put that in.
No, I'm glad you did. Okay, this one is number 14, the Ironworks, which was situated behind what we know now is the Gaslight Theater today. So it would be over there in the location of the railroad, the whole railroad area. Okay, this one is Chapman's Hardware Store, number 15. And I think that number is probably up in the sky somewhere in the photograph. Okay. And this is the smelter. This one is number 17, the New York and San Juan smelter. Talk about an iconographic photo.
I'm going to jump in real quick. Chapman's Hardware was on Main, just north of 11th on the west side. So over here where the kid and the dog are, that's where Ernie's, the restaurant, is with the food trucks today.
Okay.
Kind of give us some context.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you put this in. Okay, but that's Balster. And have we done Heard?
No,
There we go. Okay. Well, then we have so many photographs to show you. It's confusing to us too. Okay. Dr. Lewis Heard, for some unknown reason, became Goner's next partner. Fred Blackburn mentions in his several books that Dr. Elsie Heard was also with the Grand Gulch expedition. Heard obtained his allopath medical degree in 1885 from Case Western University School of Medicine in Ohio. Goner and Heard opened the Durango Art Gallery in November of 1891. He is listed as a photographer in the 1892 Durango City Directory, and later that year or early 1893, Heard's name is no longer on any photographs. He died in March 1916. So there's a photograph of a little boy, Goner and Heard. And if the background is a traditional Goner and Heard background with the window. The next one is the Riverview store, Goner and Heard. It's on the San Juan River, and I wish I could tell you more. It's interesting, it's numbered, but I don't know how or why. And then here is Goner and Heard. All of these say Durango State Bank building. They were in the second floor overlooking the main street. And this is a photograph from another expedition from 1892. It is an Indian artifact. Okay, now this one, Goner and Lika took this photograph of Gustav Nordenskjold in July 1891. And we know that because in a letter from Nordenskjold, he sent a letter to his father that he was sending cowboy photos to his family in Sweden in August of 1891. This photograph is in Judith Reynolds' book. titled Nordenschulde Mesa Verde, and she saw it printed with Goner and Hurd. So we assume that this is the same photo. I mean, it obviously is, and Goner put it on, printed them on those, on the card showing both partnerships. And you can see, you can view Judith's Zoom presentation from the link on the Animus Museum for November 2021. And here's the funeral notice for Dr. Hurd. Frank Seward Balster, this is a portrait of him. He was an optician, jeweler, watch and clock repair, and photographer who also sold gifts, curios, silverware, and Navajo rugs. And I think I read he even sold chocolates and candies. I have so many notes on him. His skills were as varied as anybody in Durango before and after 1900. He was born in Ontario, 1861, immigrated to the US, 1882, and married in Kansas, 1886. He moved to Ouray in 1889. He was a jeweler and repaired watches there until about 1893. Then his daughter was born in Durango. But in Ouray, he created a fine photograph book of the area titled Gems of the Rockies around Ouray in 1890. You can view this booklet or this book at archive.org. Here is the Bear Creek Falls, and another from the album of Ouray looking east. And then you can see the copyright. There's a Library of Congress, copyright 1890 F.S. Balster, Ouray, Colorado. Okay, how are we doing time-wise?
It's 2:21.
Good.
Keep going.
We'll keep moving. Okay. Here's a colorized photo of Main Street. Balster created many colorized postcards of in the city, the courthouse and churches and many more. Okay. And the next one shows some of his ads. You can see he was an optician. He also sold interesting stuff, arrow points, mineral specimens, Navajo blankets, views of cliff houses and of mummies. F.S. Balster, optician and jeweler, all kinds of Western curios. Oh, this one is a beautiful colorized 4-card postcard series of Durango after 1906. We can see the new bridge that's built over the Animus. It was built in 1906, so we date this after that. You can see the river and the trestle that the train still crosses over. It may be a new trestle now, I'm not sure. And the fish hatchery. And the St. Columba Church. I think the hospital is over there. And so you can see Parents Peak and the La Plata's in the background on the bottom half. And the top half, you can see that Durango's filled in. We determined that the second set of smoke stacks is the, well, that's the smelter. What was the second stack on the right? The, a lumber mill?
I don't remember. I'll take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Either that or this is one smelter and that's the other smelter, because we had 2 in town.
Yes. Okay.
We'll get
So
back
we'll
on that.
leave it like that for now, and then someone will tell us what it is. Okay. It's a beautiful postcard series, and we own this one. Okay. The next one is the Smelter City, we'll talk about this briefly in a few minutes, the Great San Juan book. The next photo comes from the page. This is the introduction part, the brief historical review, and this is a Balster print of Cliff Palace. Another Durango photograph taken by Balster. Okay, we talked about the school in the, well, Susan and I have talked about the school in the front, and you said, Susan, that's central.
Right. And actually, this photo this is one of those that we think may have been taken actually by Jackson. And then Balster kind of got the rights to it. Because if you look at the boulevard here, there are no trees. And so I think this is almost taken before Balster got here, like the Amy Mansions over here, the churches. And I think by this time the Episcopal Church was built. At this point, the school was the high school. In the later photo, like that four picture photo, the school there, so it was originally the high school. Then when they built the new old high school, or the old new high school, they turned the old high school into Central School, and they changed it. They took off that pointy roof and they put on a flat sloping roof. And ultimately it burnt down in 1950, and Mason School was there. And Mason was sadly taken down last year, which we were all kind of upset about. So, but this is another one of these questionable pictures. Who really did take it? Did Balster take it? Did Jackson take it? And Balster was allowed to copy it like some of the other ones, but it's still like a fantastic photo of Durango that Balster certainly claimed and sold.
Yep. Here's another Balster photo in the black and white print. He has printed his name, his initials, FS Balster, but we wanted to show you the colorized print of the river looking north. It's amazing. Okay, these are a few photos of his Durango souvenirs. The smelter shown on the large vase and the courthouse on the dishes. And I'm thinking this might be porcelain. Not, we wouldn't call it ceramic. I wish we could walk through his store. Mrs. Mary Richardson. Oh, I did want to say, he was the county treasurer, Balster was, and he was a member of the Knights of Pythias and Woodmen of the World. In 1903, his store was the oldest jewelry store in Durango, and he sold it to Mr. Taylor in 1915. Does anybody remember Taylor Raymond, the jewelry store? I'm sure some of you do. Okay, now we will touch on the woman photographer in Durango. Mrs. Mary Richardson was born in 1873. She stayed for a short time in Durango in 1900. She operated her studio out of her home at 878 2nd Avenue. Her first ad was in the Durango Democrat on March 7th, 1900, offering a free crayon portrait with the purchase of a dozen cabinet cards. On March 16th, she traveled to Denver to defend herself against her husband, who asked for a divorce. And the court determined the allegations against her were unproven, and she worked in Durango through some of that year. She moved to Lake City and worked as a photographer. Mary married Charles Hyder in 1907, a farmer in Delta County. He died in 1915. You can see by her portraits she enjoyed working with children. These are beautiful photographs here. Later, Mary moved with her daughter to Los Angeles and died in Los Angeles County in 1966. And briefly, I just want to describe to you the process of crayon portraiture, also known as solar enlargement. They use these special sun cameras to project the photograph onto a very special paper. The enlargement was painstakingly rendered onto the paper with Conti crayon, a fine form of charcoal. With consistent strokes of the Conti pastel, the artist rendered the portrait similar to a very fine line sketch. A book was published for training in this style of portraiture. Here, and the next slide shows the book title page and another ad for patented improved solar cameras, and then an example of what a person could do if they studied this crayon portraiture book. And the next photograph is a crayon portrait of my great-grandmother, Hattie Estelle Roberts Goner. And her father probably did this. He was William Henry Roberts. You'll see many of these if you go to antique stores or museums. I think they're really interesting forms of photography. Okay, quickly. The Great San Juan and Durango, the Smelter City book is available at the Animas Museum and at archive.org. This large 62-page publication gives the history, financial, commercial, and industrial interests and natural resources of Durango and the surrounding environs. Biographical sketches of important people of the city and descriptions of businesses are described in detail. It was created in 1901 by Dave Day and his Durango Democrat. The writer was R. Copeland Rohrabacher, who evidently wrote articles about other cities. Credited for the photographs were Frank Goner, F.S. Balster, and C.H. Peters in Durango, and Michael Brumfield in Silverton. I am not certain why Peters is mentioned. He was not a professional photographer. He was the supervisor of the Durango Light and Power Company. If you want more Durango history of the first 20 years, this is it. The purpose was to advertise Durango in print and in photographs. And there were many other photographers taking advantage of the incredible scenery, railroads, mining, Mesa Verde, and the Ute and Navajo Indians. Railroad and landscape photographers like McKee and H.J. Smith, Buck Walter, Beam, Mellon, L.C. McClure, and Ballou visited the San Juan region often. The museum will visit these historical themes in the future. It's not easy to distill a person's contribution to a town into 1 or 2 paragraphs, and to only show a few chosen photos from his work. But then many photographs are not found. They are in family albums, old trunks, shoeboxes, and computers. If you have photographs, old or new, from your lifetime or before, don't let this part of your story disappear in an antique store. Scan them and share them, or better yet, donate originals or copies to the museum or historical society in the town in which they were created. And thank you for staying with me through this 20-year journey. It's a long one. And thanks to the Animas Museum, Susan Jones, and Charlie D. Ferdinando for sharing my passion and sharing with you. Okay, questions. Let's see what they look like.
Okay, so you can either put your question in the Q&A or you can raise your hand. I see you've got some questions in the Q&A. We had one question about where the High Line is, and a couple of people jumped in. Yeah, the High Line is the section you go through Rockwood, you go through the Rockwood Cut, and you get on the amazing canyon views, and that's where the High Line is. So we got a couple on that. Carol, thank you. That John Moss portrait is a copy photo. And yep, there you go. That confirms both so the Pueblo photographer and Boston had put their marks on it, and made some money off of it. So that's all good. Let's see. I think we're getting them. Jim, I was in Durango in the 1990s and purchased a poster photo of the iconic Durango taken from the hillside above the smelter. You say this is dated 1889. However, my poster is titled Durango 1888 below the image. That is correct. That is wrong. Yes, they printed a whole bunch of those, and we do have some available for purchase still. And they do have the 1888 is the wrong date. They were done in 1889. So if you want, I know we have one available framed for sale, and I think we might have some unframed. So give us a shout at the museum and we'll see what we can do to help you out on that one. But I hope that helps. Let's see. Prior to the leaker photo, can you repeat what you don't know about the photo? This Zadie, you also mentioned Hurd and others went to Grand Gulch. My granddad's friend was named Hurd and they may have gone to Grand Gulch. Zadie, we may be back in touch too.
We may be. Yes, so what we don't know is where the photographs are. I have traced the expedition in June 1891 back to notes that Graham took, photographs in Fred Blackburn's 2 books about them. I did a really deep dive because I wanted to know what the photographs look like, and we can't find them. The book that describes the Grand Gulch expedition is called Anasazi Basket Maker. And there were quite a few writers who contributed to that publication. And then Fred Blackburn's other book is called Cowboys and Cave Dwellers, and he discusses that. Zadie, if that helps.
Yeah, Zadie, I'll get back in touch with you on that, and we'll see. Maybe we can make some more connections. That'll be wonderful. Thank you. James, do we want to see some pictures of E.A. Wilder? I'm going to say thank you, but we're kind of running late, so probably not now. I guess if you want to share them with the museum, we could do that. And let me jump. Have we seen any backs of E.A. Wilder photos with Siloam Springs, Arkansas? I don't know that I've seen that. No. My grandmother lived with him in Berkeley and saw Charles Lindbergh's parade go by in 1927 when she was 7. I donated the digital of that first Wilder photo in older age with the beard, and E.A. Wilder had 2 children. My granddaughter was from his daughter, Lily Wilder. Oh, okay. Well, another
family member.
Another photography family.
Wonderful.
So we'll get back in touch with you, James. I think we should have your contact information. Get all those old photography families together. Yeah.
Okay. And here's, I see Charlie Eckberg's answer. Great.
Yeah,
the smoke on the right.
So that probably, in that photo when we had smoke, the coke ovens, that was probably right. That was what it is. All right, thanks.
Okay, James, I recognize your email. You and I've talked before, or emailed back and forth.
And we will, we'll get back with you because there's a lot going on here. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of family story.
All right, anything else? I think we're getting them done. So real quick, as we're going over an hour for our shameless self-promotion. First of all, thank you, Kathy, so much. I know how much care and effort that you put into this presentation and how wonderful it is to share all these stories. And we may learn some new stories with this. This is really exciting. Thank you. We do have a mini pop-up exhibit on the photographers going on at the museum right now. These mini pop-up exhibits are small and they'll only be up at the museum for a couple weeks. This will probably be up for a week or 2 more, and then we move on to next month's pop-up. You'll see that one of those huge cameras up close. It's really amazing how big they are. So come on by. Our coal pop-up exhibit, the other black gold, has proven to be so popular, it's still up in the entryway. So if you haven't been here, come on by. Again, there's no admission fee right now. And we are open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 10 to 4 p.m. And you're hearing it here first. We are now open during the fall on Wednesdays and Friday afternoons from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. So please come by. The Cascade train trip has been canceled. So our next event will be an in-person event here at the museum on Saturday, November 5th. We're really excited with another Durango native, Joanne Smith, author of the book, I Lived in the Rico Depot, will be speaking. This will not be recorded and no photos or recordings will be allowed, is because she has some images that have very sensitive copyrights. So this one you're gonna have to come to see. It'll totally be worth it. She's gonna talk about auto mirrors and the Rio Grande Southern and living in the Rico Depot, which I think many of us wish we could do. The second Saturday seminar, which will be recorded and the usual on November 12th, we're going to talk about the Rio Grande Southern Railroad, and that will be the pop-up exhibit for that month. So stay tuned for more on that. Our pop-up exhibits are funded in part by the City of Durango Lodgers Tax Fund. So if you're ever wondering where that money was going, now you know. Now, if you enjoy these old photos, the museum's photo collection is online. It is available only to members right now. It is what I think is a wonderful benefit for members. So if you're a member, you should have your membership card with the web address and the password to get in. If you don't, give us a call, 970-259-2402, or shoot us an email at info@animusmuseum.org. We'll make sure that you're in. If you're not a member, for heaven's sakes, join us. You get access to the website. And what's really nice, if you're a member, you can search through the database of all these wonderful photos. And if there's the one that you would like to have a copy of, there's a button you can push and you fill out your contact information, and we can take care of it for you, which is really one of the really cool things. So join us, come by, give us a call, or on our website, you can, all the information is there. And I think that's it for now. Again, thank you so much, Kathy, and thank all of you for joining us.
Trying to get your attention.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I think if you're done with the Animus Museum's goodies, I should have stopped when you and spoke when you showed the clock. That clock face is what's left of the clock that Frank Balster took care of and repaired in the county courthouse all those years ago. And that's, you see that as soon as you step in the door.
Yes, and we're preserving it here.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And if you want to keep seeing programming like this, become a member or hit the donate button on the website. We appreciate all your support. Thanks, and we'll see you next month.
Okay, bye. Thank you, everybody.